So how do you sum up 10 years in 10 minutes? And I'm just sort of keeping an eye on the time. Well, I learnt a good deal from your Lord Young as the first patron, but the thing I most remember was his description of Wren. And you've already heard it, A Force of Nature, but the other thing he always said is you just couldn't say no to Wren. And I have my own experience of that. I first met Wren, and I think it's really interesting. I can remember exactly where I met her, not only which room in the Ministry of Defence, it was the Henry VIII wine cellar, but I remember exactly where. It was the third pillar along. You only get that sort of memory with somebody or something that gives you immense impact. And I think Wren was just extraordinarily impactful. And like Lord Young, I couldn't really say no. So I thought, why is Wren so persuasive? What is it about her that everybody that I've met just sort of says yes to her? And it isn't just to get rid of her, I do assure you. I think there are two key attributes that Wren sort of shows, and I think this is what has built, along with Martin, X-Forces. The first is she is endlessly, relentlessly and tirelessly positive. And I think this is something which is a real asset. And there have been one or two really quite difficult times in the last few years, both for Wren personally and for X-Forces. And yet throughout that, Wren has been incredibly positive and tenacious. And it's something that has characterised, you take your leadership from the top, and it is something that has characterised the whole organisation, to be positive and to be tenacious. But the other thing which I think is really interesting about X-Forces over the last 10 years is it's all about others. It's not about Wren, it's not about Martin, it's not about X-Forces as an organisation. And this is something that came home to me really, really strongly a couple of years back. It's about others. It's about doing the right thing for our people. And by our people, I'm here with I recognise most people in the room, and they were probably bored stupid of me talking in front. But actually, we are among friends, and it's about recognising that doing the best for our people is what we're all about. And it's that honesty that will turn around to somebody who thinks they would be a brilliant entrepreneur. And Wren says, do you know what? It's not for you. And that can be quite hard. That can be quite tough on the individual. But they don't actually have either, is it the character, is it the business plan or the idea or anything? And they would not have succeeded. And it would have been a failure in the making. Wren has the confidence and the honesty to turn around and say, not for you. Thank you very much indeed. Well done, but actually not for you. But also, there's enormous ambition. And I just observe that I was here last week with a national organisation called Chapter Zero. One of my hobbies at the moment is trying to get the world to net zero. And the Chapter Zero had very senior people from all over the financial world and all over the place. And they were in a smaller room down there. And it just struck me that actually Wren somehow pulls it off every time. She also has an eye for theatre. And so the 4th anniversary was on the ship HQS Wellington. I was in my prime as Chief of Defence People at the time, and I was telling everybody quite how brilliant I was at looking after so many people, about 3.5 million, because in those days the OVA didn't exist, and I was responsible for veterans as well. And one individual who'd been through Martin and Wren's organisation, called John Gedden, he stood up, he was the next speaker, and he said, well, I have 10 times as many as employees as you do. And I felt really crestfallen. Somebody had done far better than me. And he said, they are bumblebees or bees. And he runs the most amazing beehives down on the south coast. And then the 5th anniversary, we were here, and not just here, but here with the Secretary of State at the time. Gavin Williamson, it was then, but, we've gone through quite a few. The very fact that for their 5th birthday, X-Forces was managed to attract the Secretary of State, I think is quite something. And to come back on the 10th birthday, I think is absolutely wonderful. But it's not even just enough to achieve all of that and all that Johnny spoke about in terms of the 10,000 plus individuals, nearly 30 million of finance, the 3,000 hub members in the business network. or the 33% of businesses that are female-led, which I think is remarkable, particularly coming from a forces background, and I think that's absolutely superb. But the other focus is a huge theme of community, and this is something which seems to be growing more and more. It's the big business supporting small businesses. It's the spouses programme, which has been so unbelievably successful. By recognising their worth and what they do, our spouses who look after us, who run the shop at home whilst we're away, or whatever it is. It's the lobbying for the national insurance. So Johnny proudly said that the government had changed the national insurance, well, it's all down to Ren. She started it, and FSB. Beg your pardon, Mike. But it came from here, and it's the knowledge exchange hub, which I just mentioned with the Royal British Legion, and then not content with that, the Soldiering On Awards. Taking over the Soldiering On Awards about 5 years ago, and making them hugely successful. And I very early on, I said to Ren, you really ought to change the name. I said they should be called the Forces Community Awards. Now, I'm very glad she didn't change the name, because actually it's nothing like as good a name as Soldiering On Awards. But that's what she's done to it. She's changed it from just observing a couple of people, so to speak, and I belittle what was a very good system, to create a complete community awards system. And I think there's something very special about that. So what is X-Forces, in my last minute, what is X-Forces' secret sauce? What has made it so successful over 10 years? Well, I think part of it is Ren. Part of it is the people around her. Martin, the new board, which was created just reasonably recently, of Andrew, Deanne and Diane. Diane. No, I've even got that wrong. It's Dina. Forgive me. But it's also the sense of community for others, the ability to allow, as I would say, the extraordinary to emerge from the ordinary. Most people in the military think they're pretty ordinary. There's nothing special about us. We're not heroes. There are some heroes, but most of us aren't. But what Ren's been able to identify, what X-Forces has been able to identify, is the extraordinary within each of us, and give it real boost. And that's something we should be really proud of. So, Ren, thank you. Thank you to X-Forces, and many, many congratulations and happy birthday.